Chair now recognizes Mr. Hudson, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's good to see you here today. One of the things I hear all the time from my constituents back home in North Carolina is the lack of adequate access to broadband. This hearing is important to my constituents and to all of our constituents. You, the FCC, are on the precipice of making decades-long decisions which can propel our nation into the next century by giving our children the ability to learn from anywhere, disrupting telecommunications strongholds by China, providing life-saving treatments through telehealth, telemedicine, and making places like Carthage, Sanford, and yes, Barbecue, North Carolina, the epicenter of global commerce. In order to achieve this vision, we must win the global race to 5G. With auction authority set to expire in September, I ask you, Mr. Chairman, to continue working with members on this side of the aisle to produce a bill extending the FCC's authority. The upcoming 2.5 auction has ample mid-band spectrum, which will vastly expand mobile connectivity in rural North Carolina. My first question for Commissioner Carr. We've discussed my concerns about the potential for waste if governments don't prioritize funding to connect unserved communities that lack access to broadband, and my concern that guardrails on recent funding bills could have been a lot stronger. In my view, government-subsidized overbuilding will create distortions in the marketplace and allow the government to pick winners and losers, with unserved and difficult-to-reach communities getting the short end of the stick. How do we ensure coordination between the various agencies and governments who have an unprecedented level of funding? Does this come down to a single map? What else can federal, state, and local officials do to ensure this doesn't happen and we do not overbuild programs like RDOF that are already being deployed?
Well, thank you, Congressman, for the question and your work leading on this. The single most important thing we can do right now is to make sure that there is no overbuilding with these federal dollars. It has been a lot of work to make sure that we have enough federal funds allocated to end the digital divide in this country. And the good news is that I think we are there with the amount that's been appropriated if we put it into the communities that are still unserved. So we cannot afford overbuilding and waste this potentially generational opportunity to eliminate the digital divide. So we got to get our maps done. We got to drive everything through that. We need greater coordination across agencies. We do have some agreements right now, but they don't cover all agencies or all funds within the agencies that it covers. And so these are some of the steps that we need to take, because we can't sit here 3 years from now and not have gotten billions of dollars worth of bridging the digital divide. Absolutely, I agree. Chairwoman Rosenworcel, congratulations on your position, and it's a real pleasure to have you here today. The FCC has taken significant steps in recent years to identify and make available spectrum for commercial use, including for 5G deployment, and that's critical to ensuring the U.S. leads over China. I understand the FCC is currently examining the potential of 5G in the 12 gigahertz band through extensive engineering reviews, and some want to use the 12 gigahertz band for terrestrial use, but there's a disagreement over whether this will cause harmful interference to existing satellite systems. What's the status of the FCC's technical review? Will you commit to complete your review in a timely manner, especially if we find that the coexistence is possible between satellite and terrestrial use in this case?
Sure. One of the most complex dockets we have involves the 12 gigahertz band, so you went right there. The 12 gigahertz band historically has had fixed satellite systems in it. It has had direct broadcast satellite, and it has had multi-channel video data distribution systems. And now we might want to add mobile broadband to the mix. As you might imagine, that's going to take a lot of technical work to make sure that the airwaves can accommodate all those different uses without harmful interference. And some of the data we have on our record points to different interference to noise ratios that are copied from the International Telecommunications Union but are 30 years old. We have satellite policies we're going to have to update, and once we identify harmful interference, we'll have to model what it looks like and try to come up with standards for where satellite terminals can be compared to 5G systems. These issues, to be candid, will take time, but they take time because they're really important and we need to do them well.
Right, well, I appreciate that. And last question, in North Carolina and across the nation, small rural broadband providers are in some instances alone in servicing their communities. They don't have large staffs to work on grant applications, other paperwork requirements. What steps does the FCC take to ensure that its regulations do not impose disproportionate burdens on smaller broadband providers?
We always take steps to consider small providers in all of our proceedings. We recognize they may not have the resources needed to fully participate, and as you acknowledge when it comes to broadband, they may be the companies and individuals we most need to deploy in some of our most remote locales. So we've got to be mindful of that in everything we do.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I'm not as good as Billy, but I'll yield back 12 seconds.
I thank the gentleman. Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes